episode 114 of the Gutenberg Changelog podcast. We have something special for you today. As Gutenberg Times celebrates its 7th anniversary, we discovered an amazing coincidence. Bob Dunn, better known as BobWP, launched the DoTheWoo network in the exact same week back in 2018. Today, Bob and I take you behind the scenes to share the origin stories of our WordPress journeys, explore how key ideas took shape, and reveal the unexpected lessons we learned along the way. Today, Bob Dunn is the host, and I'm his guest.
Well, I'm here with one of my favorite people in the WordPress world. Well, actually, outside the WordPress world. You may know her from Gutenberg Times. Birgit, how are you doing today?
Well, hey, Bob. Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah. Well, I remember that we did some lunch in Torino, and that was outside the WordPress world. We were talking about so many other things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I'm really glad that we can do the show together.
Yeah. So I happened to see, and I don't know if you had mentioned it somewhere or something, and I saw that you were coming up on 7 years or something like that. And I thought, well, I wonder when that is. And it was in January, the same as what we've just celebrated. So I thought, wow, then we can say 14 years combined. It sounds even more impressive.
Well, and if you do it times 3, 7 times 3, it's 21. That's WordPress celebration. Yes.
Yeah.
The 21st.
Yeah. So I just thought we'd get on here and talk a little bit about, I don't want to go into the whole journey, but some of the things, maybe we've learned or whatever along the way. And I always wonder when somebody comes up with something, is it more or less a name that comes across in your brain? You think, you just think of this and you wonder what I could do with that. Or it's a concept you have. I want to start this. I want to know which way you did it. And was it, if it was what you wanted to do first, the concept of the idea, and then how did you come up with the name? Was it easy to come up with?
Well, yeah. So I started in end of June 2017 to curate news about this new thing that everybody hated, kind of the block editor. And I said, it can't be that everybody hates it, but it's really amazing, and it's gonna be changing WordPress so much. And I saw it at WordCamp Europe in Paris, and it was kind of a really great. It wasn't a live demonstration; it was just a kind of a video how you do blocks and how you can add them to a post and all that. It was very beginning. I think the first Gutenberg commit on GitHub was just in February, kind of 4 months earlier. So it wasn't really, but it was absolutely fascinating to me. And I wanted to learn what other people do with it. What the plugin developers, if they are interested in it, what they're talking about, what the developers are talking about, and where this is going and what the new features are. And I was really trying it out and seeing what's coming up. And I wanted other people to know about it. So I put a Storyfy out. I don't know if some of you might remember Storyfy. That's a kind of a curation tool where you can embed things like posts and pictures and have just a running list of things. Mm-hmm. And that was very easy to do. And I just kind of, when they published a blog post or showed off one of the little things that they found cool at the blog editor, or where a new feature was showed off, I just put it into the Storyfy. And that was up until probably October of 2017. And then I heard the news. Adobe had bought Storyfy and made it and announced that they will do end of life for that particular tool in May of 2018. I said, well, I'm not going to wait that long. I need to put it on a website. Well, I'm a web developer. There was this fun thing, WordPress, I should use that.
Yeah.
It's kind of the first one of many lessons I learned, that you have to put it on your own grounds and not do it on rented land.
Yeah.
So I thought about it. And then I also had some requests from users in the space that they would like to have a newsletter, like an email newsletter that comes every week or something like that, because they cannot always go to a page. Is there something new? Typical publishing problems that people are not coming to your website to see what's new. You need to pull them over there. Yeah. Announce it. So that was kind of the thing that come together. And because it was all about Gutenberg, I kind of just think about, okay, what are names of things? Yeah. And kind of Gutenberg Times came up. Somebody else at the same time had a Gutenberg Hub. There was Munir Kamal had that. And then there were other people out there. But I really liked the Gutenberg Times kind of name. And it was available. So I registered it in January of 2018. And that's how it came about. Yeah. And then I migrated all the Storyfile updates into the site. And it took a while. And I had some people to help me with that. Yeah. And then I started the newsletter.
Yeah. Very cool.
To go out via MailChimp. Yeah. So it was actually pretty easy to kind of follow along because it was kind of that vision that I had. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, mine was kind of erratic because when I started kind of focusing, I think I actually dabbled in WooCommerce when it first came out, like 2011 or something like that. I think it was 2000. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so I was writing a lot of stuff about it. Actually found on my blog when I was more into affiliates, people were more willing to buy and spend for their e-commerce site of the plugin. So I just started writing about it. And I did a podcast in 2014 for a little over a year called the WordPress Breakdown.
WordPress what?
WordPress Breakdown. Oh, and I did a kind of a twist on words because I was breaking down stuff, but then some of us have had a WordPress breakdown. So.
Yeah, it's a troubleshooting.
And what I did basically was I was just doing like 15, 20-minute podcasts with just myself. And I was talking about plugins or themes and stuff like that. Some of the stuff I came across, and did it for around, like I said, about 13, 14 months. And I started, it was just becoming, I just felt like, this is boring. I'm on there by myself. I'm talking about this stuff. And it's really stuff I'm already writing about. And I'm just kind of regurgitating it now through a microphone. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to quit it. I stopped it. And I told myself that I wouldn't start something till I had a really good idea. So in 2016, actually, I thought of DoTheWoo. I thought, okay, what's out there in the landscape? What would be good to talk about and stuff? And I thought, well, there's really nothing that focused on WooCommerce. And I, knew the team there. I knew a lot about it. And so I thought, well, why don't I go ahead? I got the name just, I think, was one of those things. I wanted something a little bit fun.
Yeah, that definitely it is. But it's also that alliteration in that DoTheWoo kind of, yeah, I really love it. Yeah.
And so it just, the name came to me. So I contacted WooCommerce and I said, I want to do this. Is it cool to have Woo in the name? And so we kind of verbally agreed on it. And so I started that, and about 3 or 4 episodes into it, I thought, well, is there enough to talk about with just WooCommerce right now? So I actually changed it to the WP e-commerce show and ran that for like 2 to 3 years, did quite a bit with that. So I was talking about a lot of stuff, and there was a lot of Woo in it. And then in 2018, I decided to kick DoTheWoo back up in January. And I was actually doing both podcasts at the same time.
Yeah.
And it just was becoming too much. So I said, I've got to drop one of these, and the WP e-commerce seemed like the one to do. And so I just took off with DoTheWoo again. And by episode, I was just saying on the episode before we doing this one, that I think it was episode 5, I had Brad Williams come in as co-host. Because I realized it wasn't, I needed a co-host. It was more fun, whether we have a guest or not. So yeah. And then it just kind of went from there. And the interesting thing is then when I actually came up with DoTheWoo, the site itself, 2, 3 years ago, whenever, because it was all done under BobWP, so it was
yeah.
there. At that point, I wanted to get the domain, and DoTheWoo.io was available. So I went back to Woo and I said, I want to buy this domain, but I'm stepping into another space here, as far as having that in a domain. And so they said, what was the agreement before? And I can't remember who it was at Woo. We made an agreement, basically a verbal agreement, and they were cool with it and everything. But then when, like I said, got the domain, it became a little bit more of a legal thing. So I negotiated with their attorneys. They came up with the contract and, something an agreement of what I, could or couldn't do or shouldn't do or something like that. And it was perfectly fine. It was great. Yeah, so absolutely. I signed that, and then I was able to use that for the domain. And so that's.
Yeah, it's quite the journey. Yeah.
Yeah. It's well, you know me too well. My journeys are never nice, straight, narrow journeys with nothing happening, nice, quiet.
But that's perfectly okay. You need to stay in the moment, and then all of a sudden creativity strikes. Yeah, it kind of was. So in April of 2019, I started kind of thinking. So I had a podcast in the nonprofit space. So all my life before that was nonprofit space. I had just founded in 3 years earlier a nonprofit technology company, or 501c3, to help nonprofits with the technology, because the social justice people are not equipped in doing technology. It's all self-taught, and they needed a little bit more strategic approach to it. And I was really trying to help with that. And I had a show called What's New in NP Tech with a co-host, Jim O'Reilly, and he had this wonderful radio voice as well. And he was so I'm more about kind of talking off the cuff, but starting sentences with never finishing them. and he was very polished. So it was a very good contrast. And I said, okay. So, and in 18, he had to stop doing the podcast. And by 19, I was missing that energy, that you have somebody to talk through things and what's new and what you want to, kind of try it out, and what's the purpose of it, and why that and not that. So I thought, okay, Gutenberg has a 2 weeks release cycle, and every time there's so much in it beyond what's in the release post. In the release post, release lead, whoever leads it, highlights 4 or 5 things. But there's so much other things in there that might be good for developers, that might be good for theme builders, and that. So I talked with a design director from Automatic at that point, if he would spend every 2 weeks, 2.5 hours or something like that on a changelog, that we go through the changelog, we highlight things that we want to talk about that are very important, and talk about more than the 6 things that are highlighted in the release post. And that was really fantastic to put it together. We had a certain rhythm to it. We had a certain outline. We also talked about what other people do in the space, like if there was a great plugin coming along or a question from listeners. So that was kind of really a great start. And we started, I think the 0 episode was in June 2019. And then since then I've had a most regular bi-weekly kind of rhythm. Mark Urain did about 40 episodes with me, and then he left Automatic. That was, I think it was December 2020 or something like that, like after a year of pandemic kind of thing, or January. And then Greg Chilkowski from Poland, also was a Gutenberg developer, kind of came on for another 25 shows or 20 shows. And then I started to rotate on hosts. Yeah. And that was kind of made it a much more fun to kind of think about, okay, what other people are doing in the space, and can I bring that into the show and still talk about the changelog. So we had Tammy Lister and Fabian and Ryan Welcher, Nick Diego, Hector Prieto. One show was actually also with Matthias Ventura, when he had his new phase of site editor to announce. And with all the different phases in Gutenberg, we had always something to talk about.
Mhm.
And it was
Yeah.
funny that that friend with whom I did the previous podcast, he's still a very good friend of mine, and he kind of had the question for me. So you call it the Gutenberg Times. So what is when Gutenberg is done? What do you do then? I said, well, I will. Once Gutenberg is merged into core, wouldn't your site be completely obsolete? I said, no, I don't think so. There are a lot of other things that are going to come along. Yeah, but it was really interesting to see how that in other people's mind kind of made it, okay, it's done now. But we all know it's not done. Yeah, it kind of in December 2018, it came into core. And what are we now, 2025? And we're still working on the phase 3 of Gutenberg project. Yeah, so it was kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they think of not an end in sight, but they don't think of how to kind of now twist it to this way or twist it to that way. And some people are very, that I'm going to go to this point, and then this is a point I feel there's nothing else to be said, at least from my perspective. But you're like me. I mean, when I had Brad come on, I don't know how long it was, just Brad and I, and then I had Jonathan Bold and Mendel Curlin from GoDaddy back then. They came on. So we started rotating, because again, like you said, it was fun. And then we were bringing in guests too. And then it just, after a while, I started thinking, well, could I build on this? And the more I got into it, the less I wanted to be on the podcast. Or, I just thought I want to, because it started coming to the point where it was, we're talking about this and that and all these different things. But also I was seeing people that come on a podcast for the first time as a guest, and they, after, they were, freaking out at the beginning, but then at the end or later on, they said, wow, that was so much fun and stuff. And I thought, well, I'd like to get more other voices and have other people talk about stuff and pick out hosts that have their own specialty and their own knowledge and stuff. So it's been kind of crazy. Some people look at me and say,
when did you start with that kind of the network of shows? Was that 2 years ago and kind of 3 years?
So, Brad came on. Then on January 9th, 2020, I brought Jonathan in, and Mendel came in. And then I think it was January 30th, 2021, I brought Zach in, and Ronald joined. Then after that, I just kept thinking, how far can I take this?
Yeah.
I think it was when I actually launched it as its own site. I had somebody design it, and then after about 2 years of that, I started doing some other stuff, and I thought, I want to make this more of I won't call it, and I don't like really a network, but, a collection of shows with all these different people. So then I had to look at redesign everything of that. But it was just, for me, it's just, I'm at a point where got to kind of just deal with what I have here now. And all the hosts are volunteer, so they always know. We've had a few that have had to leave for one reason or another. They're just, they're get busy with their business, and they just said, I don't have the bandwidth anymore. And I say, cool, thank you for what you've done. And I have a Hall of Fame on my post page and stuff for those that were on before and moved on. So it's been very, I'm very flexible with them, scheduling everything. Everybody's busy and stuff. So we just kind of deal with stuff. We get things all scheduled in for a year, but then we move things around, and people have times they can't show up. And sometimes it's a little crazy, but they all seem to enjoy doing it. And, I'm lucky for that. And
I have started kind of rotating through. Well, I started then kind of see, okay, the WordPress space is still a little bit more male oriented. And I see it also in my audiences. It's all 65% male, between 35 and later or older. or it's 80% on the podcast. And I said, well, I guess I'm in a situation where I can actually also bring some more female voices, especially female engineer voices, to the space. And I have not, and that was it's a real joy for me to work with the engineers at Automatic or other agencies or other hosting companies. Yeah. So, and I kind of want the person who comes on have actually also not only be a one time, and if they want to, that's okay. Yeah. But if they are multiple times on the show, they get their own routine for that. And it's much easier for them to say yes now than for the first time when they don't know really what they expect. So I'm really happy to have about 10 to 12 women engineers that kind of rotate through now. And most of them are actually in the community. They're people like Jessica Lishek or JC Palms and Kassoff. They're all very knowledgeable about the subject anyway. Yeah. But then they're also put in the grind in theme development or plugin development. So it's really interesting to see what they bring a different perspective to the whole thing. Yeah. When I was having a conversation with Greg, who is on the development team, I said, well, I could bring the user questions. What were you thinking? Kind of, yeah. And then he would explain it quite nicely. And I learned a lot when talking with the volunteers what software developed to the contributors, what software development is actually about. Yeah, that it's kind of, you have the architecture, but it's so much behind the scene that you can't bring on the forefront. And if somebody is, for content creators, it's just just change. If I hear somebody say, well, it's just an easy fix. Yeah. That was kind of what I had when I was was running my agency. It's never just an easy fix.
No,
it's always more.
Never.
Yeah. And it's kind of, so it's interesting to see and bring other voices in there.
Yeah, definitely. I know for me, the hosting has always been, I try to keep some kind of balance in some way, but I'm also asking, the person has to be willing to commit it. Somebody, I've approached a lot of different people, and a lot of people just, don't have the time to commit, or they just don't. And also, it does take a certain person comfort level to be a host. I mean, you want to be able to do it. I mean, if you're, almost on the edge, just going in as a guest, I mean, I give them the benefit of the doubt. Some of them have come in a little bit reluctant, and they ended up just loving doing it after a bit. So it's kind of, and it's good. All the different voices. I mean, I've had a lot of guests on. I swear that probably 65%, 70, or maybe it's higher. I don't know. Our first time been guests, they've never been on, and sometimes I have to talk them into a little bit, and often they're surprised how much they can talk when they don't think they can. They get going. So
it really depends on the question.
Yeah, for sure. Want to be a hero when it comes to your clients? You built a site. Now you want to make sure that with your client's Woo shop, that they are ensured that they have accurate sales tax rates in place, especially in case of an audit. Avalara is a leader in automating sales tax and compliance for businesses selling online, both big and small. If you're setting up a new WooCommerce site, get your clients set for sales. If you currently manage several client sites, it may be time to make that recommendation. Either way, get their WooCommerce extension and let your clients take advantage of a 60-day free trial. There's also great resources for either you or your clients on their site where you can learn more about sales tax calculation, among other services like returns and exemptions. So for peace of mind, Avalara.com has you covered.
Because I have found that everybody kind of brings something to it, and even if they're missing knowledge, you can fill that, and in a conversation, it fills knowledge gaps from other people that are listening.
Yeah.
And so I always kind of have a appreciation for things that don't go well, because that's the most important things when you learn things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So And I never really had anything that didn't go well. Sometimes it was just, we had one the other day where we had 20. That's a horror story. Yeah? If you have a rundown that's 29 pages because you have a changelog, from 3 plugin releases because you had a holiday break.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
That is kind of the horror story where you say, okay, you need a special guest for that
Yeah.
who deals with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then, you sometimes get lost on, am I on page 15 or on 25 or where am I? Kind of because you scroll so fast. And so, we cut that out and we kind of regroup and then be back there. So it's really, but yeah.
I had somebody, a couple times this happened. One of the guests didn't get recorded in. The track just wasn't there. It looked like it was recording and everything. So when I went to play back, they were out. And I believe one time one of the hosts actually said, well, send me, the episode and I'll fill in those spots. I'll listen to it and then I'll reply and then I'll see what I asked next. And they did it. And it worked fine, but it was a nightmare for them. Then I had to go in and put everything in. But I did have a guest once, and it's just, I felt so sorry for him. We don't do a lot of, upfront questions on ours. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people will request it. And this plugin developer was really pretty nervous about being on. So I said, well, let me send you a few questions of what I'll talk about. Well, I could tell even when we started, he was, it wasn't for him.
So reading it.
And so and I always tell my guests, if you need to start over on something, it's recorded. So it's not live. I can go in and edit. And this poor person actually had created the answers for all the questions and was reading them. But he was so nervous that when he was reading him, he kept stopping and saying, oh, I got to start over. And I could just feel his tenseness. And I wanted to say, if this isn't comfortable, but then I didn't want to. So we did it. I went in and did some editing and it turned out fine. But I felt for him because I thought, I know that feeling when you think something might be easier for you or something, and you get in there and you just don't have it in you or something. And, I don't blame. There's a lot of people that just refuse to come on the podcast. They'll just say, no, I can't do it. And I'm like, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I take that now very seriously. Because you don't want to, but the other part was the horror stories only start when I screw up.
Yeah, that's when I did.
So at the beginning, I think I missed the record button with my mouse, and we had to do the show again.
Yeah, I had one of those.
Yeah, I think everybody has, but I have a very good editor who goes through that. Yeah, she's been a radio producer all her life, and she helps me with that. So now I just kind of record on QuickTime as a backup. Yeah. So even if I screw up the Zoom recording, but now there's, with Zoom, you actually get 2 tracks now. And that's really helpful. Yeah. Because sometimes we just talk over each other. That happens. Yeah. When you're in the moment and you want to kind of, it's something you're excited about. Yeah. Then you talk over each other and then it gets really hard. Yeah.
I have a few people that have been that stuff almost, and I'll shift tracks, and I shift them and stuff. And I did have the one that I forgot to record. It was when I was doing my other e-commerce podcast, and she ran this company that sold cosmetics, and she was in Ghana, and it was just, she had a Woo online store. That's why I brought her on, but she would give jobs to local women to go out because they would have to get the ingredients for it. So she provided jobs for a lot of the women there. It was a fascinating story. And I finally was able to get her on. And the most embarrassing thing is when you find out in the middle, I looked down, I thought, wow, that record button isn't going. And I thought, now I have to tell her this right in the middle, which is, I don't know what's worse, going through the whole thing and at least, oh, sorry, it didn't record. But I kind of paused. I said, well, I have an interesting situation here. Obviously, I didn't push the record button. And then she actually laughed. She said, well, go ahead. We can do it again. Just send me your calendar again. And she was real cool about it. But my heart just sunk.
Yeah, I imagine. Yes, yeah.
No recording.
Especially when there was a good show and it was a good groove, yeah, and then all of a sudden, I destroyed it.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. No.
It's interesting too, because some people, like when you were talking about, somebody asked, well, what about when it goes in core, and the goals over, it sounds like you've been a lot like I have been over the 7 years, is you flex with whatever works. It's like, okay, is this going to continue? Yeah, well, I can continue it. And you've tried different hosts and you found that sweet spot. Yeah. So I think both of us, I was going to ask about, did they ever change for our sites during the 7 years? And they probably did, in the sense that, yeah, well, shifted to this bit and nothing real. Maybe I know that when I moved it to its own domain and kind of focused more on the bigger group of hosts, that was probably a big shift, but it was in my brain for like 9 months. I was working on stuff.
Yeah. Well, there wasn't really a big shift. Yeah. So I think I changed theme once and it's definitely overdue for a new one, because I'm still on a classic theme and I should go on a block theme, because then you can do a lot more. Yeah. But I just didn't have the time yet to migrate over. But I think I'm also, up until 21, in summer 21, it was all a hobby kind of thing. I did it next to my agency work, and it was up and downs in terms of how much can I time spent there. And during the pandemic, I had about 4 months of burnout, kind of, because I had so much work to do and I didn't have a break, and I had to take my break. And the only thing that I did during that break is keeping up with Gutenberg and keeping the weekend edition going, keeping the podcast going. But I wasn't doing any agency work. The developers and freelancers that I work with, they were so good and taking over. I said, I can't just deal with it. Yeah. And if I have to step in, I step in. But you know how we work, and yeah, there were all many years with it. So it was between November 2020 and February 2021, I was only doing the Gutenberg Times. And I was really amazed to see how that always kept my excitement going. Yeah. And there's a lot of personal stuff that get in the way afterwards. Yeah. So we moved. We moved to Sarasota. We sold the house in Naples, renovated the house. There was a lot of non-work and non-publishing kind of stuff getting in the way. And then we organized our house in Sarasota. And then we had to, after 2 years not seeing our parents, we traveled to Europe in 2022. Yeah, we met in Porto, and you were also kind of moving. And so I think we did this pretty much at the same time, moving back to Europe. Yeah. So, and I was really happy that I was able to, that I got a job at Automatic. Yeah. And part of that job is keeping Gutenberg Times and the Gutenberg Changelog going as a developer advocate. So having that was a real blessing for myself and for me, because I couldn't migrate my agency. I closed the agency when I knew I was going to Europe. And so keeping that going was really good. I'm very grateful for working with Automatic on that.
Yeah. That I didn't know that part of it. I mean, how that just seamlessly all worked, and you were able to bring that right into it. And yeah, that's cool. I think for, I mean, the big change probably was when I went to the bigger network of shows and stuff and everything, and started bringing more people in. And then at the same time, I was given the gift of a redesign of the site from the special projects team at Automatic. Matt gave that to me, and which was phenomenal. It was like, it was almost, for a few days, I was just thinking, is this really happening? Because it
This is
was,
real.
I mean, it took us quite a few months to, put it together and stuff. And I have one funny story about the launch. We had kind of a soft launch because, and I was at CloudFest.
All right.
And I got a message that said, your site's live. And I'm like, oh, really? I had not planned for that. And the ironic part of it, we got such a kick out of it, was my site prior to that had Beaver Builder on it. And I was hanging out with Robbie from Beaver Builder when I got the message, and I told him, and we did this picture. We were having a beer, celebrating and everything, but it was so funny because he just got a kick out of that. I basically removed Beaver Builder, and here he was celebrating with me and stuff. But Robbie's great.
The new website.
Yeah. But yeah, it still is amazing, the support and everything I get with that site stuff.
Yeah.
A couple of times I've really messed it up. I keep saying, maybe I should just let you do more things because I shouldn't be touching stuff.
You can't, you don't know where the boundaries are unless you want to kind of get past them. So, yeah, what's your own knowledge is you want to kind of kick it a little bit.
Yeah. I'm poke around a bit to kind of understand, some of the stuff is custom work, so I don't want to mess that up. But some of it's, adding stuff. I've probably learned more about the block editor and everything than I ever thought I would be, just getting in to try to figure out, okay, this got to be a small change, and and it's like, okay, an hour later now, what happened there?
Yeah, I was doing that actually on WordPress.org. I'm part of the editor of the developer blog that launched in late 2022, and then I got the note from the Meta team that the developer blog now has a block theme, and I have access to it. And then I said, "Oh, I can change the navigation," and I went in there, changed the navigation, and it kind of dropped the whole navigation.
Oh no.
And they kind of added all the navigation to the top level navigation. Yeah, there's this two. One is the overall WordPress.org, and then on the subsites you have their own navigation. Yeah, so all of a sudden now it was jumbled. So it took about 2 days to fix it. But said, okay, I'm not gonna touch that anymore. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've kind of learned now, but I did screw something up recently again, and I'm having them look at it. And I even tried revisions, and it seemed like the more revisions I went back to, the worse it got. So it was like, okay, this is hopeless. I don't know where this stuff went, but it's not here anymore.
Yeah, and here goes a half a day of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the web development. I think it has, it's always happened since when are you doing web pages? How far back is that going?
Oh, so I started doing, let's see, when did I first do? We still had our previous marketing and design business around in 2000. Oh, I don't know, 2005, 6, somewhere around there. I started doing, well, actually, it might have been even earlier than that, doing little HTML sites, because we were print design, because we started it in 1993, the business. And so I had to kind of kick in and scream and be pushed into it. And I made these god awful HTML sites with, what was it? Adobe, what was it called? It was one of the,
Was it Dreamweaver or was it Front Page?
Dreamweaver, yeah.
Dreamweaver, yeah.
And I remember I made one of our own site, our first own site. It was like, I had Flash on the, it was just horrifying. Bouncing letters, dancing around or some crazy thing. And then 2008, 2009, I think 2008 or 9, I got into WordPress, started dabbling and playing around with the blogging and stuff. And I went to iThemes and got one of their themes there and redid our business site. And I was like, wow, that took me like 1/100th of the time it took me to do any other site, because it was, it actually looked good and it would function good and stuff. So yeah, I did that till about 2000. and what was it, 2014 or 15, I think, is when I finally quit designing. I knew this, I was into content, and, I knew what I wanted to focus, and I was tired of the design client side of things. And I just,
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was your first?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't want to say it was 1996. Yeah, I did a German site. It's all HTML and table, kind of horrible. Well, it's still out there because it's a reference site for books and all kind of in Germany. But yeah, so that was in 1996. I started. There was a citizen met in Munich, and I learned about it, and I learned about HTML, and I found it so fascinating that you can put it up on the web and everybody can see it.
Yeah.
Without almost immediately, and that it's so much different experience than printing, where you have to wait till it comes from the printer and then you need to distribute it. Yeah, it's kind of, that was instant distribution, and I really loved it. But then what I found was that all the neo-Nazis and Holocaust deniers were all on the German part, were all in America on servers, and there was nothing in Germany that kind of holds against it, kind of what really happened. And we were a group of 2 people. Each one of us had a site and started a site about Holocaust and all that information. And mine was called showerproject.net, and we collected information about the concentration camp in Dachau. Before the concentration camp had their own website in 2000 or something like that. Or I talked with, I connected with authors who had published poems and also some nonfiction about the wealth of Jews that kind of was taken away from the governments and all that, and then about the resistance in Germany. It was all in German. But there was no equivalent otherwise from private citizens to actually put this out, and that really made me. And then there was this big discussion. There was an exhibition, a traveling exhibition. There was this myth that the German Wehrmacht, the German army, had nothing to do with the concentration camps, but that was a myth, and it wasn't true. And there was an exhibition. He actually showed all the facts, and there was a big brouhaha in the whole. And it was traveling, and so everywhere I was kind of picking up the snippets from the online sites, from websites. So it was kind of an interesting.
I think I started using computers. in the early 80s. Or it was, probably mid 80s. And I actually went to community college in the States in, I think, maybe mid to late 80s. Took a year of computer programming. And I had to learn, what was it? BASIC, COBOL, assembly, Pascal.
Wow. Yeah.
There was one other thing. And after a year, I remember we had this great guy from
Fortran.
Yeah. Was it? That was the other one. Yeah. We had to dabble in all those in 12 months. And at the end of the 12 months, the instructor, he was great, who was a Brit, and he just had that craziest sense of humor. He said, well, now you've learned all this. It's all going to be obsolete by the time you step out this door. We're like, and I discovered a year of that was not what I was going to become, was a computer programmer. I thought, but it gave me the comfort level to use computers. I was really comfortable with that. So that was good. But yeah, crazy times. So what's going to happen in the next year for you, do you think?
Well, it's going to be, weekend edition's going to be quite interesting every time. And I see that in the community that the block editor is more in the forefront more and more. And there's some great stuff coming out with Playground and with Studio to do staging sites and to just play around with WordPress. So I know that Gutenberg, the core contributors on Gutenberg, are still going to do the bi-weekly releases. So we're going to do maybe a monthly release, because monthly show as a podcast, and invite a few more people from the space that work with Gutenberg. There is now also quite a few people have adopted the block theme space, quite a bit on multiple levels. Yeah, it's for enterprise level. They started very early, but the agency level, yeah, Web Dev Studios, for instance, JC Palms was on the show recently, who had the starter theme from is a block theme for Web Dev Studios, and they start every project with it. So these kind of things show me that there's quite another level of adoption happening about the Gutenberg project. And of course, I'm still hoping for a Google Docs real-time collaboration, or just kind of async, with the comments.
Yeah.
There's some great experiments in the Gutenberg plugin, that I want to kind of dive into quite a bit as well. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Yeah. WordCamp Asia is going to be now a little bit more of a research travel for me, to talk with the plugin developers and talk with some of the engineers and kind of what's next for them. And I'm sure I'll find a few interview partners that I can make a show with on the space, because some of them have left the space, some of them are coming back. So it's really interesting to see.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. It's interesting because I think there was a point where I started adding some shows that were more WordPress based. And what I found with some of these shows is kind of everything always comes back to WordPress or WooCommerce. And a lot of it, the similarities, the kind of weaving in and out of all this stuff, that it's good to be knowledgeable of other things, and no matter what you're doing. So I'm hoping then we're going to be stepping more into video, as I've been talking about. We're going to be doing more video with some of the shows, and we might do a little bit of live stuff here and there. I've kind of kicked and screamed into that. So that's another piece that's going to hopefully grow. So I'll be trying to focus a little bit on that.
Yeah.
That part of it and what I do with that and how I present it and all that stuff.
Yeah, I have heard from quite a few people that there's a generation out there that doesn't read anymore.
No, I know.
If they want to kind of go on YouTube and be entertained, or at least shown things. And of course, with software, if you want to teach somebody, you need to show it. That's very hard to do on a podcast. Yeah. So
it is. So there's, stuff that who knows what. Cool. Maybe we should make this a tradition now. Every January, you come in and catch up and see what we did and what we blew and what broke and what didn't work.
I would love to do that. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. But
we'll make it a January tradition. So anyway, so we have WordCamp Asia coming up, like you said, and you and I will both be there. In fact, you're going to be you'll be coming and co-hosting the table, DoTheWoo little booth, I believe, for an hour. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah. Friday, I think.
If you haven't caught up with her, caught up with Birgit, I'll post when she's going to be at the table, and then that way you can tie her down, because sometimes chasing people around, you know how that goes.
No, absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to WordCamp Europe Asia. Also, I'll be at CloudFest this year, first time. So I'm not going to be at the hackathon, but there are too many people from Automatic going already that actually have a project. Yeah. And then WordCamp Constance. That's a camp with German speakers. So it's really going to be interesting.
So you'll be at the regular CloudFest event and stuff. Yeah. And I know there's going to be a little bit more WordPress stuff going on. And that'll be fun. So we'll be seeing each other next month and the month after.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I'm really loving it. Yeah. And
okay. Well, we've said it enough times, but Gutenberg Times, and probably the URL is very easy and stuff, but do check that out. What is it? GutenbergTimes.com?
.com.
Yep.
And you can see me also find me on the Twitters and on the Blue Skies and I still call it Twitter. Sorry.
Yeah, so do I.
On X, on the Blue Sky, and also on Mastodon.
Yeah.
So, and of course on the WordPress Slack and WooCommerce Slack. So I'm everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful chatting with you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, this was definitely a must-do show for January. So I appreciate everybody listening, and
happy anniversary.
Yeah, happy anniversary.